All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships podcast. And this is going to be an awesome conversation today. I am here today with Stephanie Synclair. And first of all, Stephanie, welcome. It is so awesome to have you. It's so great to see you again. It's been a while.
Thank
And
thank you so much. Likewise.
yeah, and I want to give a quick shout out to Kevin Nations because that's how you and I met. Gosh, I think it's like 7, 8 years ago. We were both in the family
At
mastermind
least,
together.
at least
Yeah,
7 or
yeah,
8 years.
you're right. It could be longer. Time flies.
Mhm.
And
It's like it feels like it was just here, and yet it wasn't.
that's right. That's right. And I
Yeah.
know, a few weeks ago I was going through some stuff in the office and I found
I
this
actually think we're going
photo.
into the ninth
And
year. I think
yeah,
we're
yeah,
going
I
into
think
the
you're
ninth
right.
year,
I
Kevin.
think, yeah, you're right. You're right. It's been a while. And that, I mean, man, you and I would have not even met probably if it wouldn't have been for Kevin and the time that we got to spend together under his umbrella. And we just we met years ago and we just made a really great connection. And even though we don't talk a lot, we've just
Mhm.
always been friends ever since then. And
Yeah.
and finding that picture about 5, 6 weeks ago, I found this for everybody listening. I found this photo that was taken at an event that Kevin hosted, and Stephanie and I were both there with about 10 other people. And when I saw that picture, and of course I sent it to you, Stephanie, I'm like, look what I found this week. And what really stood out for me was, wow, look at all that has happened since that photo was taken. And I know I watch you on social media and stuff, and I have seen you grow as a person, just amazing growth as personal development and the impact that you're making in this world. And you are somebody that places such a high value on relationships, and I have been looking forward to this conversation because
Yes.
you epitomize what this podcast is all about. And so I just want to kind of start by turning it over to you to just let you share whatever you feel led to share about, let us know about the work that you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do and the impact you're making. And also give us a little bit of backstory on how you
Sure.
even got here.
Sure. Absolutely. And yeah, I just kind of want to get in with you with the Kevin Nations thing. I think that environment with Kevin Nations was my first real experience on relationships mattering really deeply. And I didn't come into that container thinking like, oh, I'm going to make these relationships and it's going to grow my business in any kind of way. I was just genuinely interested in meeting other, you know, thought leaders, world changers, entrepreneurs, and by default, developing relationships. None of us talk all the time. And when we do, we talk forever. We talk for a long time when we do talk. I recognized how important these relationships are to even just our longevity, the paths we take in entrepreneurship. So yeah, I have to say, and I love that you're doing this because I have historically been horrible at keeping relationships going. If, I'm not the one usually to reach out, and I've realized how important relationships are, and just to even lend a note. Hey, how are you? Hadn't talked to you in a while. Just conversing on each other's social media just to keep that connection alive is beautiful. So yeah, I love that. But for what I do in the world, I do a bunch, but my main thing right now is subconscious reprogramming for thought leaders, world leaders, people who know they're meant to be, but they're playing quite small. And really, it's their belief system that's keeping them stuck. And I kind of got here by mistake. When we met, what is about 9 years ago now, I was actually a marketing coach,
Okay.
business and marketing, and I had been there for many years. And I love business, I love marketing, but and you let me know if you found this to be true as well. But year after year, when I would host these events and I would do these masterminds and I would connect with people who are like focused on their strategy and let's get all these pieces in order. Ultimately, I found that, yeah, the strategy was cute. It was good. You need a strategy. But a strategy without the belief system behind it, knowing you can do it, it will literally stop you from implementing strategy with the power that's necessary in order to get the result you want. And when people would, leave my masterminds or, at the end of the mastermind, we would talk about it. Their biggest change, every last one would say, was, oh, I'm a different person. How I think about myself is different. How I think about my business is different. How I think about what's possible. And it was interesting because at first it was annoying for me. I wanted you to talk about your biggest change being like your finances and like all these
Uh-huh.
things. And everybody led back to, oh, who I am is different. How I operate in this world is different. What I see as possible is different. And again, it was annoying initially, and I really started to lean into it because the reality is I enjoyed that conversation more. I enjoyed that work more. And I went back to school. And now we know I didn't need it. I clearly was doing it already. But I also wanted to make sure I could use as many tools as possible, gather all my tools and modalities necessary to do this work deeply. That was really just what I had learned on my own in just navigating the world. But I wanted to really have tools and resources in order to help people navigate their programming and their belief system. So I went back to school for a master's degree and a doctorate, which I very rarely actually talk about because, again, it doesn't really matter, in order to get this. And now this is my space and I love it so much. So it's kind of flipped. Before it was, we were talking about business and marketing, and then this is what I gave them. And now I give them all of this. And then they also have the benefit of having a person who is like geek out on business and marketing and numbers. So I still do the same thing, but in a different order and with emphasis on something different. And I let other people really focus on strategy because I mean, it's a plethora of beautiful strategies, but ultimately I know that no strategy will work long term if you aren't where you need to be mentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing's going to really work long term. Like you'll get the influx and then you're like, oh man, business is slowing down. You'll get the influx, oh man, business is slowing down because it's not the business, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's interesting. I have totally experienced this, Stephanie. I mean, I look at the work that I get to do today and who I get to serve. I mean, I get to serve entrepreneurs who are doing such big things in this world, who are making such an impact in this world. And here's the thing about successful entrepreneurs. People might think, as I did, that, oh, if somebody's, what we perceive as successful from the outside looking in, they really got their shit together. Boy, it sure would be awesome to be them, because if I was like them, man, life would be good. And that is the biggest crock right there. Because yes, they have a skill set. They have several skill sets. They are brilliant and even world-class at what they do. But at the same exact time, at any given point, they got very real problems, very real challenges that they're dealing with. The bigger their business gets, the smaller their circle of people that they can truly trust and confide in. And, I used to put these entrepreneurs on a pedestal even. And certainly I would think like, well, what does a guy like me do in trying to think about serving entrepreneurs like that? Because I haven't even done anywhere near what they've done. And until I started having just one-on-one, real, just heart-to-heart conversations with these entrepreneurs, and I put myself in places where I would meet them, places like Kevin Nation's Family Mastermind, places like Joe Polish's Genius Network, places by like Jesse Elder, in anybody that's in his sphere of influence, something he puts together, that's my kind of people right there. Because anybody who Jesse attracts is pretty awesome entrepreneurs, And putting myself in places where I would just get to meet these entrepreneurs and have conversations with them. What ultimately happened is like, man, I'm like, I had so much empathy for them because yeah, you're doing really great stuff, but you're also carrying a lot of weight. And
Absolutely.
if I can help alleviate some of that by making a connection for you or helping, introduce you to somebody that can help you with this thing that you're working on or what have you, how awesome would that be? And
Yeah.
so, I would never be where I am today and getting to do the work that I do if I wouldn't have got past my own BS in my own head of that, like I had something of immense value to offer the right people and stuff, you know.
Absolutely.
And
And, also it's moving past this belief that because someone may have more influence or more money, which tends to be how we measure success.
yeah, yeah,
And sure, that's one level of success, but it's not success. It's one measurement of
that's right.
success.
That's right.
Um, but it's like getting past that belief that because of that, you have nothing to offer, but your success, your interpersonal success is a level of success as well, right? And it's not that one level of success is higher, they're just different conversations about success. And just like you want the influence and the money, they want the part that you have.
Yeah,
And so really both are necessary. That's why I always say it's a level of success. It's a step in success, but ultimately, success is well-rounded. Like I have had moments early on where I was making millions of bucks, but if you were to see the back end of my business, or you would see how straight, like now, I am much more grounded as a person where I am. I remember I used to homeschool my son and I felt like he's 16 now, but I felt like, oh, I homeschool, I'm running my business, I have all this going on. And in hindsight, it's like, yeah, you homeschool, he has the program, you're homeschooling, but you work all day. You are like doing sales calls all day, you're doing this, you're doing that. I had a level of success. I had the influence and the money and the clients, but ultimately, the next level of success is really the balance, the having that, plus also the family dynamic and being in the house together or being in the room together is not really connecting. And so I wish when he was 4, 5, 6, I knew then what I knew now. I didn't even know it was possible to be just as successful without killing yourself working many hours or on the holidays. I would do sales calls on the holidays. My boundaries are so strong now. It's like, no, if you can't wait to talk or, whatever, if you can't shoot a message and let me message you back, like this is probably not a fit anyway, because I'm
yeah,
not gonna
yeah,
cross my boundary. But they're just different levels of success. And I feel now that I know better, or once I became conscious of that, that's when I realized like you're not as successful as you think you are, because there are some things that's lacking,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But I don't think you get that until you attain one level. And then that's when you're like, okay, it's more to this. It's layers to it's like an onion. Like we talk about our own personal growth. Everything, all of this is like an onion, and
Yes,
you're peeling back the layers,
yeah, 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 yeah. That man, that is. I it makes me think of other stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to turn this into my thing. I want to keep it going on you.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that that is really really landing, and I can tell you, Stephanie, this is going to land with the listeners too, because I know I'm personal friends with a lot of our listeners, and I know that what you
Mhm.
just shared, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling that. And so, and
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Because one thought process is like this idea of financial success and clients comes from like all this work and pushing and forcing and hustle. And early on, I knew I didn't like it. I've never even liked the word hustle and grind. I don't know. They sound hard to me. Like when you think of things that grind, it doesn't sound sexy at all by any means. But you get caught up and you have to. And I think the other side of that is this knowing that work doesn't have to be that grind and hustle,
that's right.
and it can be more flow and it can be more intentional.
Yes.
and things just turn out differently. So you get the same result with a lot less stress,
Yes,
a lot less stress,
absolutely.
better relationships, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm so with you as a husband and a father to 7 kids and grandpa to 6 grandkids. Family is something that is really important to me, and it has
Mhm.
been for a long time. And
Yeah.
I remember, 13 years ago, I was in Joe Polish's Genius Network group, and I was at a meeting one day. It was day one, first morning of a 2-day meeting, and somebody else had made a comment, and they were talking about their business and how it fit in with the life that they wanted to live and have fun. It was actually Bedros Killian is who it was. And I
Okay.
kind of piggybacked on the back of what he said, and I don't remember everything that I said, but I made a comment something along the lines of that. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give myself a 9 because I think there's always room for improvement. But my business fits in with my life really well, and it lets me be the husband that I want to be, the father that I want to be. I wasn't a grandpa yet at that time, but after I shared that, this guy follows me into the bathroom. I got to be really careful how I share this because I'm still friends to this guy to this day, and in fact, we become really good friends. But he just shared with me, and he said, Kevin, he said, I just really resonated with what you shared in. And he's like, and I can tell you, I hang out with some of the wealthiest people in the world. And I can also tell you from personal experience, they are some of the most miserable people you would ever meet. And
Yeah.
and he's like, what I will tell you, and I'm not going to share everything he shared, but he's like, what I really appreciate what you shared about the importance of your family and you being the husband and you being the father that you want to be. And I sure could go for a lot more of what you got going on in your life in my life. And he's like, I have a wife and kids at home that I don't see as often as I want to, and it's all my own doing. And I want more for them. I want more for them. I want more for me. And so it just started this conversation between us. And I'm not going to lie, Stephanie, at that point in time, I definitely put this guy on a pedestal. And I thought, oh, but yeah, even at that, just by him following me into the bathroom, and over the course of the next 2 days, I don't even remember what all we talked about, but we talked about a lot. And
Mhm.
um, we have been friends ever since. He has made so many shifts in his life, in his business, and now he only works like you with people that he loves working with, and he does it
Mhm.
all on his schedule. And if it doesn't fit in with that, he's kind of like you and I both. They're like, well, you know what? This probably just ain't going to be a right fit because not only do I have boundaries, but you know what? You need to have boundaries too.
That's
And we're
true.
okay with that. You know, and
Yeah,
it's that's a big thing.
it's true. It's true. And I hear a lot of people say that people talk about, and they use it as this thing of like, that's why you shouldn't go for money. But it's not that being wealthy is the problem.
No,
It's that
no,
you work on the money and not yourself. You worked on the money and not the internal work. I'm a believer in not demonizing money and not demonizing wealth because why? It's a thing, it's a tool, right? And if I think the problem comes when you don't think of it as a tool, as you think of it as this thing that it's almost like this desperation of having so much of it. And it's a different, like so much so that you're willing to sacrifice yourself and your family and your friends and your boundaries and all of those things. Because I hear people say that, and I'm like, but don't confuse that and use that as a reason not to have money. Money's not the issue. It's you. It's you and you not being grounded in who you are as a person and you not recognizing that the reality is people who make money from all the working, all the hustle, all the grind, crossing their boundaries, and it's people who make money from not. And you
That's
get to
right.
choose which way you want to be. You
That's
get to
right.
choose where you want to sit in this realm of money making, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
not making money is not an option.
That's right. Because, like you said, money is a tool.
It's a
Being broke
tool.
never helped anybody.
No, no. And like even, it's a lot happening in the world right now. And I was saying on social media the other day, like the time you're spending like rah running your mouth, like the best way to make change is to make money, and you can donate money. You can donate time because you can afford to donate time. You can use your money to elect officials, to help get officials elected, supporting their campaigns. That's going to support your stance, whatever your stance is. Like, be focused on what matters. Is that money gives you a level of power if you know what to do with it, in order to affect change that you need to affect, right? So yeah, money is not the enemy.
Right. That's right. Well, now that we've got some context set here, and listeners have a good idea of who you are, Stephanie, and what inspires you to do what you do. I'm going to switch
Mhm.
gears a little bit. I'm going to
Okay.
reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business? So much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons. And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting because I've had so many experiences in my life where there was no one that necessarily got me here, but I would say a culmination of things
Totally.
that helps me get here. I think about when I was in college for my first degree in broadcast communications, and I was in the airport, and I met this guy. I saw him with the NBC Today show briefcase, little
Okay.
cloth briefcase, and or canvas or whatever it was. And so I stopped him to run my mouth because I mean, I don't know what the plan was. It wasn't a plan. I was just eager college. And next thing I know, he gave me his card. I had no idea how to keep in touch. So I'm like randomly sending email. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know anything about networking, but I kept in touch for a full year, and I wasn't far enough in school yet to like get a job there, but I was far enough for the NBC, the morning show is what I was trying to get like an internship there. You needed to be in your senior year.
Okay.
But I was far enough to do a local internship, and that's how I got my internship and first job at NBC 13 in Birmingham, Alabama. He
Wow.
connected me to the program director locally. I went in, I interviewed, and yeah, that kick started me into number one, a career where I was comfortable in front of the camera. I was comfortable speaking and really just connecting with people in all areas of life that could help me in other ways. There's how I found out what coaching was. I had no idea what coaching even was. So like that one relationship introduced me to something to get me in another room. And in
Yep.
this room, I find out about coaching and that I had experience and insight that I can take into the coaching sphere. So that kind of took me. And then you move on, and I've met people who got me on stages to speak that I never would have gotten on, that led me to the next opportunity. And I feel like for me, there hasn't been any one person or one thing. It was a multitude of things, but recognizing that it was people involved in each step to get
Yes.
me to the next
Yeah.
step. Even now, I even think about I don't know what tomorrow holds for me. And what I mean by that is like right now, this, that I'm currently writing a book. I bought a house 2 years ago in Italy. An opportunity came up for me. I'm talking to this woman. I met her in New York. Someone introduced me to her. It was a very innocent conversation, but I'm a person who believes in synchronicities. And I get to talking to her. She's like, you need to write a book. I'm like, yeah, people have been telling me that. And long story short, by the end of the conversation, I found out she is VP at I won't say the name, but it's only 2 major publishing companies. So at the top, major publishing company. And she was like, you need an agent. I'm like, I kind of looked for an agent once or twice. No one ever responds. She says, oh, that's because you need an insider. And she gave me a list of names. She did introductions via email. Within 5 weeks, I was signed to an international literary agent that I never would have been signed to if it wasn't for this introduction, which has now taken me on the next step where like we're even talking with production companies who's waiting on the book to come out in order to do a TV side of the entire thing of being in Italy. So,
Wow.
I feel like my entire life has been set up where I'm in the right place at the right time, having the right conversation with the right person to get me to the next step. And it's so interesting because I'm a talker. We both talk, but I'm actually pretty quiet when I don't know people. I tend to be quiet and observe more than anything. And I've really worked on that because I do recognize how important these relationships are. I feel like and I feel like some of your listeners may feel this way too. I always feel like the awkward person, like, I'm not real good with surface anyway. So it's like, well, what do you say? You can't be like, so what's your deepest, darkest dream? Like dig in. And so I always feel awkward in the
What I
conversation.
really want to know.
Yeah. But it's always these perfect situations that come about. And even though I don't necessarily initiate conversations, I'm always open to conversations. I'm smiley. I let people know I'm approachable. I'm just weird enough that I'm like, I don't know what to say other than I feel like I'll be that weird kid to be like, hi, with nothing else behind it. So I say nothing, but I'm open to conversation because I know that's a lot of what I hear from people. It's like, how do you meet people? I'm like, I am the wrong person to ask. I just go in the room and I smile. And, I assume I have a spirit that when you smile, a smile will take you a long way. People know you're friendly and
Absolutely.
you're approachable. It will take you a long way. So even when you don't know what to say, just start with that, right?
Yeah.
Being in the room and then
Fine.
being approachable.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, listed off a number of people, so I wrote it down, NBC guy, and then
Yeah.
that led to your internship locally, which led you into like the world of coaching, which then got you on stages, which then, met somebody who were able to get you in touch with a book agent. And so, if you
Yeah.
look at all these different stages and these people that have been so impactful on not only your life, Stephanie, but because of who you are and who you serve,
Mhm.
because of all
Yeah.
that. I mean, see, I start looking at this and like, man, the impact from all of these relationships has been massive. And because
Absolutely.
of who you serve and who they serve, I mean, it's mind-boggling to think about. But I want to ask one follow-up question. And if you look back on these relationships with these people that you've mentioned and stuff, and look at a specific situation, I'm sure you could come up with lots of examples. I just want to challenge you to come up with one. It's going to be the one that just pops right to the top of your mind, where you got to make a really big impact, that it really stood out for you, that like, wow, that was so awesome. And you also know, hands down, that would have never happened if not for the relationship that you had with whoever else that was. So what is an example of that, Stephanie?
This would never have happened without. That one's really hard because I really don't know if there's any one
Okay.
thing. And I know that's odd. I don't know if you've heard that before, but I just really don't know if there's any one thing. I think for me, it is a culmination of all of them that built. And I know a lot of people have those circumstances of like, they met this person and it just completely changed everything. But I think for me, it was almost a snowball.
Yeah, it's a culmination of all of them together. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone, and I'm searching. And nothing's jumping out because I think one thing leads to another, and I'm really good at following my intuition and taking the next step. I really feel like, I mean, if I had to choose one, it would have been, someone who introduced me to Kevin Nations. I mean, I would say that would probably be the one thing that kind of changed the course of my career or my impact. My impact grew immensely in that. But if I had to choose one thing, but even that was a person to person. But I would say if I had to choose one thing specifically related to business, it was probably being connected to Kevin Nations. And after being connected to Kevin Nations, my business completely shifted. How I show up completely shifted. And yeah, the rest is history, I guess. Maybe I would
Yeah.
say that, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
I'm
Well,
I'm I'm sorry if that's disappointing. I'm
you
like, I hate there's not
no,
like one
you don't.
huge
You
thing,
don't.
but
You do not need to apologize at all, because here's the thing. It's like, this is such a unique experience for every individual person, you know.
mhm,
And what you shared here about, I think when I started this podcast, I know when I started, I was like, I'm going to interview everybody and I'm going to ask them about their one most valuable relationship. And
yeah.
it only took me until the third interview I did that the guy was like, "Are you serious, Kevin? Do you really expect me to narrow this down to one person? I can't possibly do that." And I'm like, "Well, I guess not then." And so we talked
Yeah.
about a whole bunch of people. And
Mhm,
everybody's experience is so different and so unique. But yet, you
mhm.
know, with what you just shared, look at all these people that through stages in your life, stages of growth, stages of figuring out the next thing, when you didn't even necessarily know what the next thing is. And you even just said, heck, I don't know what's going to happen next right now.
Right.
But yet
Mhm.
you are just 100% confident that the
Yep.
right people are going to come into your life at the right time, the right conversations are going to be had to just keep you on the path that you just want to keep on going down and making the impact that you get to make in this world and stuff.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely, because I think that's what I'm focused on, and I really believe when you're really focused on making that impact, the right people come into your life. I just think that's what it is. When you are really focused on that and you are focused on people, when you are people centric, I think the right people come into your life. Um, And I think it's important though to say how it's not this one person because I meet a lot of people who think they're going to meet this one person that's just going to like change the world. Like they're going to meet Oprah and they'll be on Oprah's book club. And because they're on Oprah's book club, life completely changed. And
yeah,
yes, does that happen? Yes. But even when that happens, typically it I don't care what anybody say. It's very unlikely that it was happenstance. It's very likely you hired a publicist. So even inside of those different things, it was a person that led to a person that led to a person. And then this person, it helped to catapult. But it actually wasn't just that one person. It was just a piece, one of the dominoes,
yeah,
right? And so like, I think people are always looking for that Oprah effect. But to get to the Oprah effect, there were people who got you to the Oprah effect.
that's right.
And so I think
That's
that's
right.
why it makes it so difficult. And I really hope people recognize that everyone matters.
Yeah,
Everyone matters. Like even down to I think about when my life was first starting to change. Somebody I consider like a spiritual mother or a spiritual teacher. She told me to get two books, The Game of Life and How to Play It, and The Four Agreements. Her telling me that one thing to get two books started changing things. Like I could even go to her and no one knows who she is. Like she's a regular person who's not online and her telling me this one thing shifted the trajectory of my entire life. Like if I have to, maybe love you, Kevin, but forgive Kevin. Let's go to that. But about how simple that was. That
yeah,
was telling me about two books.
yeah,
It was like, you have to read these. That. That's what got me to the other thing. So it's like the Oprah effect thing. You need a
Yeah.
person to get you to this place, this place. There is no, I just don't believe there's any one person. I just think it's a group effort. And
Agreed.
trusting again, the right people will always be there.
Yep.
The wrong people will fall away.
Yep. Yep.
And everything lines up for you to reach the next step. I like to tell people, because people are always worried about the big picture. Like, I want to be here. And it's like, you need to know the big picture. I'm a big picture thinker. Absolutely. And I'm not always great with the small details, but I tell people, know the big picture, but then take the next step, because sometimes we're so worried about okay, so lay it all out for me. Sometimes you don't know every step. And sometimes you can think you know every step and you lay it out. And guess what? You'll do the next one, and the next one will lead you a totally different
That's right.
direction.
That's
And
right.
so just take the next step in trusting that the right person, the right situation, the right opportunity will be there for what the next step is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. So for anybody listening to this, Stephanie, going, dang, Kev, that Stephanie, she's something else. And I would like to know more about her, and how can they, any websites, any resources that you would let them know about?
So the schoolofquantumliving.com is the
Okay.
website. And then I'm Stephanie Synclair on every platform. Synclair with a Y.
Okay.
On
Very
every platform. I think you actually can go to stephaniesynclair.com and get to the School of Quantum Living too. But yeah, Stephanie Synclair on every platform, and the name of my company is the School of Quantum Living, because we live a quantum life.
awesome. Awesome. Stephanie, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. I am really excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs, because I know how impactful this is going to be. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me, and thank you for creating a platform where people can recognize the power of connecting with people, because
Abs-
ultimately that's all we have is each other. And
That's
I
right.
think when we get out of a space of thinking it's just us, we did it on our own, we did it on our own. I think that's when we really can grow, when we realize we do it with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Stephanie, thank you again. Really appreciate you. Appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. I'm excited to get it out there. So thanks again.
You're welcome.